All right, guys. So what we're gonna do when we have our 2 eggs for our recipe, what we're gonna do is we want to crack them into a dish first. And the reason why we do that is because we want to make sure that we don't crack this directly into our dish when we're making our pork fried rice, to avoid having shells in our rice, and also to avoid cracking an egg that's bad. Possibly has blood, or it's just not good. If we do that, then we'll have to throw everything away and start all over. And these are the last two ingredients that go into your dish, so we don't want to do that. Okay, so two of the ingredients that are also going to go into our pork fried rice, we have green onions and we have the bacon for the pork. This is what we're going to use. It's a thick cut bacon. We want to be very careful not to cross-contaminate, especially when we're cutting vegetables, meat products, proteins on our cutting board. So the first thing we want to do, obviously, is we want to cut the onions. We want to cut the green onion and get that out of the way. Any garlic that you're smashing up, any other vegetables that you're cutting or smashing up, you want to cut those first, and then we can cut our pork, we can cut our bacon on the cutting board to avoid cross contamination. So first, we're going to cut our green onions. We'll cut that all the way down, right to the stem. Now that we've cut our green onions, we can now place our bacon on the cutting board. And like I said, it's just very important. I just want to point it out again. I just want to really avoid cross contamination. And by doing that, we want to make sure we cut all of our vegetables first, and then now we can add our protein, or we can put our bacon on the board and not worry about cross contaminating the food and getting anybody sick. So we'll get our bacon. We'll cut that bacon in half, and then we want to go about 1 inch thick cuts, because I like to have some thick cuts of bacon in our pork fried rice. It's gonna make it taste really delicious. Okay, so once we have that bacon, we move the bacon from the cutting board. We'll take our knife over to the sink. And we're all done with our cutting board. No more chopping, no more cutting. We'll take our cutting board over to the sink, and then now we avoid any kind of cross-contamination and getting anybody sick. Mise en place. Everything in its place. We want to make sure that we have all of our ingredients set out, ingredients measured, and ready to go before we start cooking. What we do not want to do is we do not want to start cooking and not have our ingredients measured out. We could risk burning our rice, risk burning the oil. You put the oil in, you put the bacon in, your bacon's cooking, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot something. So you go to chop it, and while you're chopping, your oil or your bacon is burning. We do not want that. So it's very important to make sure that you have your mise en place all in order. Mise en place, everything in its place. So what we have here is we have 2 strips of thick cut bacon. I like to use the thick cut bacon. We're going to render off the fat, and use that fat, use that grease that renders off the bacon for our pork fried rice. We have our minced garlic, 3 teaspoons of minced garlic. We have 2 cups of day-old rice. And I say day-old rice because that's exactly what it is. It's rice that was made the day before. So if you're ever cooking rice, you ever make white rice for any other dish that you're making, you have rice that's left over, it's perfect for pork fried rice. And the reason is because once it cools down, it crystallizes. Those crystals melt while you're cooking them and while you're frying them, and it gives great texture to your pork fried rice. If you were to cook rice the same day and use that rice for the pork fried rice, it would come out mushy. Nobody wants mushy pork fried rice. I know I don't. And then we have 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. This is going to add a lot of sodium to our dish. If you'll notice, as I go through the ingredients, we don't add salt. There's plenty of sodium in the 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And then we also have 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce, which is also very high in sodium. Oyster sauce basically is just oyster juice, reduced, caramelized with some sugar, and bam. We have 1 teaspoon of sesame oil, and this is just going to be added for flavor and aroma in the cooking process. We do not use it to fry the rice. And our 2 eggs, remember to make sure that we crack the 2 eggs in a cup first, and we do not add them into the dish or crack them into the pan. That avoids shells and avoids bad eggs. And then we have our 1 green onion on a bias cut. This is going to be for presentation at the end. And these are our ingredients. I also want to add, if you don't have bacon or you don't have any pork in the house, a good substitute for that is just using 2 tablespoons of canola oil, vegetable oil, and you can omit the bacon. You don't have to use it. Okay, now that we have all of our mise en place ready to go, we're ready for the fun part. Ready to cook. What I like to do is I like to have an order of operation. If you follow your recipe, the recipe that I've given to you, you'll notice that whatever is listed first on the recipe is what goes into the pan first. So, for instance, in this case, we have bacon that's listed first on the recipe, minced garlic, our day-old rice, our soy sauce, oyster sauce, sesame oil, 2 eggs, and at the very end, we're just going to garnish with green onions. The green onions don't actually go into the pan. They just garnish the plate once we serve it. And these are all in order. So not everything's all scrambled around. It's not all over the place. I'm trying to look for what goes in next. I know what goes in next because it's an order of operation. So what we're going to do is we do have a wok. I know that if you don't have a wok at home, it's okay. You can use a regular pan. The wok is just going to help me evenly distribute heat and look fancy when I'm sauteing. So in our wok, we're going to make sure that this wok gets heated up. We're going to give it a few seconds to get really nice and hot before we add our bacon. Once the wok gets really nice and hot, we're going to add our bacon, render the fat. So that means that we're going to let all that fat on that bacon melt and go into the pan. And that's what's going to help us fry our rice. Add our 3 teaspoons of minced garlic. Saute that for about 30 seconds. And then we're going to add our rice. When we add our rice to the fat, we want to make sure that every single grain of rice is covered with bacon fat, with grease, or with oil, whatever you're using to make your pork fried rice. And the reason is because we're making pork fried rice, and if it's not covered with bacon fat, it's not going to fry. And so we want to make sure that every grain of rice fries. The other thing, real quick, that I want to point out is if you don't allow your pan to get hot enough and you add your rice in there, your rice is going to turn into mush. It's going to steam rather than fry, and that's never good. Once we add our pork fried rice, we're going to make sure that it's all covered with oil. Make sure that it's frying. At that point, we're going to add our soy sauce, our oyster sauce, and our sesame oil. Start adding all these amazing flavors. You're going to start smelling a nice, great aroma in the room. You're going to want to start getting ready to eat. Stir that up. Pan fry it. Once that pan fries for about a minute, you're going to want to create a well in your pan. So what I mean by that is you're going to want to separate everything, push all the rice to the side, and leave the center of your pan open, clear of any rice, of any bacon. Leave it open. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we're going to add our 2 eggs to the center of that well, scramble our eggs in the middle, get them nice and cooked. Once they're cooked, then we're going to mix it all together with our rice, plate the rice on a plate or a bowl, and then we're going to garnish it with green onions. All right, so we're ready to cook. We want to make sure that we turn on our flame high heat. We want to get this pan nice and hot. Whatever pan you're using, like I said, if you're using a wok or if you're just using a regular pan at home, that's okay. The important thing is to make sure that it gets very, very hot before we add our bacon. So that once we add our bacon, the fat starts to melt right away, and we start to render that fat so that we can use it for our pork fried rice. So give this a couple minutes. Not a couple minutes, about a minute. You want to have on handy a spatula, a wooden spoon, a hard plastic spoon, cooking spoon on deck. That way you can have it ready for helping you with your stir fry or with your pork fried rice. And then another one just to kind of help you scrape out your ingredients as you're putting them in. You're not having to sit there and bang the deli cup on the pan. So kind of have those on hand. And then should be ready to go. 2 strips of bacon. Kind of stir it around so that it doesn't stick or start burning. And you'll notice that the bacon fat is already rendering. The aroma of bacon is making me hungry already. Get a nice good crisp on the bacon. And let that fat just render. Go ahead and add your garlic, minced garlic. 2 cups of day-old rice. Make sure you break up all the grains of rice. Make sure that it's all evenly coated with grease, or with the bacon fat, rather. Kind of breaking down the clumps here. Kind of spread it out a little bit. And right now we're going to add our soy sauce, our oyster sauce, and our sesame oil. Make sure we get all that oil out. Now it's starting to smell really good in here. Okay, once those ingredients are well mixed, you're going to create your well. Add your 2 eggs right in the middle of the well, and we're going to scramble those eggs up right here in the well, in the pan, right in the middle. Get them nice and scrambled. Once they're scrambled and cooked, then we can mix all of our rice together. You hear that real nice sizzle? The rice is going to be really nice and crispy, have really great texture. Okay, right about there, it's about halfway cooked, halfway scrambled. We can start scrambling it in with our rice. Okay, and once we're done, just go ahead and grab some of the pork fried rice. We'll plate this rice here. Some green onions. Just add some green onions to the top. And there we have our pork fried rice. Pork fried rice. Very simple recipe, simple ingredients that are just laying around the house. Day-old rice, you guys. If you ever have any rice that's left over, this is a perfect meal to make. Be the one to volunteer to make rice at home. Click subscribe at the bottom of the page. Let me know that you watched this video. Share this video, and then I'll be in touch. Bon appetit.